What's going on, everyone? It's Sean from All Things EV, and this is another Gally and Sean collab. This is, I don't know, what number are we on here, but we got to be like five or sixth collaboration. Gally, welcome to my channel.
What up, Sean Mitchell's channel? Great to be back.
You know what? We were talking before we hit record about our collabs. You did do like a little sort of segment recording where I added you in on a previous video. I forget what that was. You added some
battery cells going vertical.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yep, which we'll definitely talk about today. We've got a whole list of things. I'd first love to get your sort of quick analysis, quick take on Q3 earnings.
Definitely. So at a high level, Tesla finally has figured out how to make money. I mean, that's the biggest takeaway from the earnings. We saw this is the fourth quarter out of 5 past quarters of really strong positive cash flow, meaning there's more cash in the bank than we started the quarter with at the end of the quarter because the business is doing well. And so I think, Tesla's on the cusp of continuing to grow with Model Y and Model 3 in China. And we're already seeing before those new cars come online, they're already profitable. So I think that's really encouraging. And frankly, this is what a lot of the skeptics and bears were complaining about Tesla. It's like, okay, the product's great. The market share is great. We saw that data ahead of time. And now we're seeing that they're able to build those cars profitably as well. And then from taking a step back, the overall financial health of the company with $5 billion in cash or $5.3 billion, and they're adding a little bit of cash. They have a huge cushion. They can invest in new stuff. So I think it was, just continued execution. Tesla seems like they're really growing up as a company. And so I was really, really proud about this quarter.
Yeah, that's my take as well. Although I haven't done a deep dive into it yet, it appears like they're maturing in terms of costs and expenditures as well. They're getting more efficient with how they're spending their money. They're doing more with less, and they're making that dollar stretch. Would you concur?
Yeah, and I think part of the reason why Wall Street was so baffled and the results went up is because Tesla has been saying they're going to do this and they're going to improve their manufacturing and they're getting better and better each quarter. But last quarter, we didn't see it because there was less regulatory credits. And this quarter, we are really seeing it. But it's just that constant piece of innovation at the manufacturing level. Tesla's constantly working on automating this, making this better, making this more efficient. And that laser focus on cost cutting is really coming through on the bottom line. And we're able to see them not only the ASPs, the average selling price of the Model 3 is normalized from that 60 grand performance all-wheel drive. Now the average price is around 50,000, kind of normalized, stabilized, and they're able to do it profitably. And so that was a huge question, and we've seen them validate that.
I know one of the criticisms that I've seen online, and I haven't really given it a whole lot of thought, but they say that the year-over-year production numbers or delivery numbers are down. What say you about that?
Yeah, so the delivery numbers were up slightly, but I know the revenue was down year over year a little bit by about 8%. And Tesla's always a rapid growth company, and us bulls are saying, okay, well, that's why they're not profitable yet, or that's why you give them the benefit of the doubt. They're growing rapidly, and they still are growing rapidly overall. It's just this quarter was a very unique, weird comparison where they deliver all of those $65,000 performance Model 3s in the US, which had a much higher average selling price. So it was sort of like an inflated quarter with all this demand. So it just made for a really tough, what's called comp or year-over-year comparison. But Tesla's business is kind of lumpy like that. And they haven't, in the past year, they haven't really expanded production capacity. They've just gotten really good at, making sure they're producing it the most efficiently. And that's why we've seen them be able to do it profitably. And now what's coming in the next year is we're going to see capacity expansion with China and with Model Y. And as that comes online, we're going to see that top line start to grow and accelerate once again.
How do you think Q4 will end up, in your opinion? What's your consensus?
Q4 is going to be about 105,000 deliveries if you assume that they say they're going to hit the low end of that 360,000 guidance. And I think, you assume a little bit of more of economies of scale, continued improvements. So I think the US sort of main piece of Tesla is going to be crushing it. Then China's kind of a question mark because how many cars they deliver, the gross margin on those cars, the profitability of those initial cars going off the line is going to be very low. So that could be a little bit of a drag on the numbers, but it's going to be a very small piece. So personally looking a little bit out to Tesla, I don't like to dive, quarter to quarter. I like to think a little bit more longer term, but we've been hearing some really interesting hints about Elon Musk several times referencing like Q2 2020 or Q3, sort of late 2020 as a really strong period for Tesla when all of these sort of tailwinds kind of merge. So I think results are going to be strong until then, but maybe they could be choppy quarter to quarter.
Let's talk about, this is something that you and I dialogued about regarding the Q3 numbers and the report, they said that they had about 500 million in unrecognized revenue from full self-driving. What are your thoughts about that? Because I think that that's huge. Maybe not so much as a total number, but in terms of potential and where that could head. This is essentially unrecognized revenue from selling software.
Yep. And so even though Tesla made a profit this quarter, they weren't allowed to book all of that revenue. If you bought that $7,000 or $6,000 fully self-driving package, they're only booking a couple thousand of that in revenue, putting the rest on their deferred revenue as a liability on their balance sheet. And which you're saying that number is actually about 600 million that they expect to recognize over the next 12 months in their SEC filings. So we're literally seeing over time software become a bigger and bigger piece of Tesla's business. And it's sort of this weird way the accounting works, where when they roll out features, they're allowed to incrementally recognize it. But this is a tailwind we're going to see for the next 6 quarters as we get to full self-driving. Each quarter, if they make that progress with a big update, they'll get another chunk of revenue. It was 30 million last quarter, and very high margin revenue. It could be 50. And they said it's going to be 600 or so million over the next 12 months. Maybe a little bit of aggressive Elon timing there, but even if you pare that down, it could be 50 to 100 million each quarter for the next year or two.
And to me, it seems like an untapped potential. We've discussed this sort of on and offline about how, well, in my opinion, the automotive industry still doesn't understand this software component piece or this software as a service piece, because there's no other company that can do it like Tesla does. And when you look at what Tesla is offering, yes, they're offering a physical product, but they're also really, really good at the software piece. And in the future, maybe in the near future, it just appears like they've got the ability to sort of write their own check, stroke their own check, and really create products that produce revenue post purchase. And to me, that is going to be the dark horse for Tesla.
Yeah, and I think the real trend is what Elon Musk described on the conference call. This is the biggest sort of change in an asset's value in history. Like this idea of once we hit full autonomy, the car is going to be worth $200,000, or that's how much it'll be able to generate for an owner. And everyone's always like, "Oh, that seems so crazy," or where are these numbers coming from? But that's what we're talking about. That's literally playing out right now. They're just raising the price to 7,000 of full self-driving. Soon it'll be 10,000. And so we're seeing Tesla slowly morph for the more and more value of the car to go to software, which is higher margin, which changes all of these preconceived notions about how to value car companies and what their product even is. So yeah, I think this is a story that's really hard to get because frankly, it just like hasn't ever happened before. It's like sort of history unfolding before our eyes.
No one's got the context for it. And, it reminds me a lot of the criticism that I see about Tesla in regards to full self-driving. The critics and the bears will say that they're pushing out software that maybe is not ready for prime time. But I think many of those people probably fail to recognize that this is iterative, right? They push out a software update, and then maybe a week later, they push out another one to make it improvement and incrementally better over time. Versus, I think the automotive industry is very much, they produce a product, they present it to the consumer buys it, and that's it, right? You can't update a Jaguar or BMW or Mercedes unless you take it in. It's a very static product, but Tesla is very fluid and very iterative in their product that they create. And I think that we're going to start to hear more about a term that both you and I are very familiar with called LTV, lifetime value, right? It's not just a one-time purchase, but it's the lifetime value of that customer over the course of ownership. So purchase of the Tesla vehicle, but also the lifetime value of that customer will be purchase, and then all of these opportunities for the consumer to spend money through the app or through the software, through the touch screen. I know we've talked about an app store, which I think will come inevitably. You've also got the full self-driving thing that Tesla can push out to people who maybe didn't purchase it initially, offer them an incentive, a Black Friday sale, for example, and give them a reason to buy that, which then increases that lifetime value of that customer.
And from a technology perspective, it's fascinating. And this is why we say that, or at least I think almost no one else is a threat to really get to full self-driving, or even seems like they have a plan that will work to get there. Because Tesla, like you said, they push this update out. okay, we have a couple 100,000 people testing Smart Summon. Let's use that data to push another update out, and a week later to make it better. It's the fleet learning approach. So there's a lot of aspects to the fleet with what Tesla's doing. Now it's about 700,000 cars with autopilot 2 on the roads, soon to be a couple million, all training that neural net, refining the software and autonomous vehicle technology. This is that feedback loop and cycle that literally no one else has or is even remotely close to. So from that, just getting the autonomous software better side of things, I think Tesla's so far ahead. And then you're talking about this sort of business app store use case, which is the flip side of 700,000 active installs, soon to be millions of active installs. And think about it, these are people spending hours per week in their car. They're probably extremely forward thinking, tech savvy, probably very wealthy people. So even though the numbers may seem small at first, this is an extremely valuable demographic of people. And it's sort of their little, their home away from home, smartphone on wheels. So much potential. But I think no other car company, like you said, has the ability to, from a software perspective, to really even start competing at this level.
Yeah, I think in order to fully recognize the potential of generating revenue inside of a vehicle, you've got to tackle the autonomy piece first. There's only so much attention that you can ask for a driver or a consumer in a vehicle while they're actually driving the car, or while they're actually parked. Like Tesla is sort of starting to present opportunities for consumers to engage with the car via the internet right now, while the car is stopped by accessing YouTube and Netflix and so on. But imagine when the car is driving itself, you're going to have, this is going to be the new screen. This will be the new battle for people's attention while they are riding in their autonomous car. And so the opportunity to the business or revenue opportunity in the autonomous car is going to be huge, but you can't do that. You can't recognize that opportunity for an app store or video streaming or whatever it is until the car is driving itself. And it appears to be that Tesla is in the best position to be first to market. Okay, so let's hit on another topic here. This is something that you created a video about recently, and something that I think that we've had a discussion about on previous live streams that we've done, which is Tesla licensing out their battery and drivetrain to other automakers. I'm curious to get your sort of hot take on that. Do you think it's likely? There seems to be a lot of chatter about it.
Yeah, the hot take, I think, is me reading in between the lines on the conference call and there being a 30-second silence after Adam Jonas's fill-in asked them if they would be willing to do this. And then they basically said, yes, we'd be willing to do this. So that's interesting on a lot of levels because it's like, okay, Tesla's struggling to get capacity for their own electric skateboard to make, their supply constrained for their batteries. So for them to already talk about licensing them out to other companies really left me scratching my head. And it's interesting about where are they going to be building these? Because as far as I know, Tesla will have its own capacity. Then a week later, that same analyst, Adam Jonas, or his team goes on the Fiat conference call and asks the Fiat CEO if he would buy stuff from Tesla because they already have this partnership to offset the credits where Tesla's buying a ton of, or I guess Fiat is buying a ton of credits from Tesla. And he basically admitted that, yes, we'd be interested in buying Tesla's electric skateboard and batteries. And so I don't know. There's a lot of rumors swirling. And I think the, Matty Mogul's research of his efficiency chart shows, and I think your research shows when we were at Monroe and Associates, it's clear, not only is this by far the most efficient and longest range battery skateboard on the market, but it's probably the cheapest. And so I think almost everyone is desperate for this technology, and whether Tesla wants to use it for their own cars or someone else's, I don't know, but I'm kind of curious your take of how do you think, this is all going to play out?
Yeah, I was after you did the video, or after I saw the chatter online about this potential, I was sort of recalling maybe a conversation that we had. It might have been something on your channel. It might have been even the last one where we did sort of an interview style thing where I sort of proposed this idea that Tesla should sell their Generation 1 battery cells to their automakers, because no one's been able to top their Generation 1 batteries that were in the 2012 Model S, right? The 75 kilowatt hour, 85 kilowatt hour battery pack that does 263 miles of range. No one still to date has beat that with a production vehicle. I think people are getting close, but you're seeing some of this similar range at a far larger battery pack. So To me, I like the idea as a potential revenue stream for Tesla, number one. I don't think that they would sell their Maxwell technology to their competitors. I think that that would give away too much of a competitive advantage. However, generation one or maybe generation two batteries that are being produced by Panasonic, to me, that makes a lot of sense. I think that Tesla does have some secret sauce in there that does make it, as you said, not only more energy dense, but just less expensive overall to produce the battery cells. I think maybe a concern of mine is, does Tesla have the capacity to be able to facilitate this amongst all of the other priorities that they have? Right now, they've got one place, I guess technically one and a half places that they're making their batteries, right? They've got Sparks, Nevada at Gigafactory 1. My understanding is that they're making the 18650s in Japan, the ones that they're putting into the Model S and X. That may go away at some point very soon, but that's just speculation. My understanding is that they're also building a battery production facility in Shanghai for Giga 3. And then it appears like the model moving forward is going to be, at every Gigafactory is also going to be battery cell production. So I could see them addressing that issue of, do they have the capacity, by making sure that each one of these gigafactories on these various continents does have the ability to produce battery cells, which then they can resell to any automotive maker. So I do like that. If they do that, there is that revenue potential, which I think could be pretty significant, especially knowing how these other automakers have not been able to compete with range and energy density to date. And then I think that the Maxwell piece of this they will probably not resell or outsource. I think it's just too good. It's too new. It's too fresh. And I think that it would give away some serious competitive advantage if they did that.
Yep. And a couple predictions. I would say Gigafactory 4 is very interesting to watch because that's the next factory to get announced. Do they bring in a German partner? I'm almost 100% sure it's going to be Germany. Just look at a map of Europe about where this is going to be. And do they bring in Volkswagen? Do they partner with another German company to, get some of the skateboards out of that factory? I don't know. I think the chances are low, but that could totally happen. Battery Investor Day. Do they announce a deal to license out their battery electric skateboard? That could be another possibility. But I think at a high level, like what you're saying, we're freaking out because we're like, Tesla's developing their own battery cells, which are even better than what they have on the market. So we don't want them to give those away. What's really happening is people, we've been saying this forever, but the skeptics are like, why can't someone copy Tesla? Why is this battery tech so hard? Can't everybody else do it essentially? And now we're realizing like, no, they can't. This was going to be, if this actually happens, the amount of validation this goes to for Tesla of Volkswagen or Fiat Chrysler saying we have to buy all our electric skateboards from you guys. I mean, this is as big as it gets in terms of validating the tech and Tesla's lead.
Yeah, I do wonder. I do wonder how. So if hypothetically Tesla does, which is another topic that I think we were going to cover. If Tesla hypothetically goes and starts making their own battery cells, right? My hypothesis is that they're going to take the Maxwell technology. They're going to leverage Maxwell in their production as well as High Bar, and they're going to create this production ability to be able to reduce cost even further, increase energy density, and have this sort of next generation battery that they start making. This should free up, maybe if they part ways with Panasonic. That's sort of another variable that I'm not quite sure on, is if Tesla does do their own thing, they get into their own cell production, which seems like from all of my research and people that I've talked to, it seems like that's the direction that they're heading. And I think we'll hear more about that early next year at the Battery and Powertrain Day. What happens to Panasonic? Does Tesla continue to work with Panasonic and produce the older generation battery cells? Maybe it's Gen 1 and Gen 2. And then they sort of work to resell those to automotive makers. And then Tesla's making their own for their third generation and fourth generation and so on. The big question to me, though, is what happens to Panasonic if Tesla does indeed go into the battery cell production business?
Yep. And I think to me, the answer is really simple, which is they'll keep all these lines up and running exactly as they are. Like they need all of these cells that Giga 1, which is 500,000 cars a year for Model 3 and Y. Like that's locked in. They'll still need to buy those. Panasonic can still make the money pumping out those cells. But why haven't we heard about capacity expansion? Because for new lines, they don't want to build this old technology. Like it's worth it to keep these old lines running. But everything new going forward is going to be Tesla's vertically integrated cells. So my guess is they'll use those for products where they really need the cell to like perform better, maybe the semi truck or the Roadster to start in smaller volumes, and they'll use these Panasonic batteries to continue the Model 3 and Y, maybe not update those with the new architecture till 2023, and then kick Panasonic out. But I think there's a real clear path to them just continuing to just buy what they have from Panasonic, but no longer expanding with them. And I think that's why the news has had such a hard time with this, because they're like, why is Panasonic freezing investment? Shouldn't they be expanding? Like, why? It doesn't seem like we're getting the full story. And even when I was at the Gigafactory, like, I could just feel the tension. Like, I just don't think we know the full story. And the full story is going to be, whoops, we're not expanding with Panasonic to get to 150 gigawatt hours. That 35 to 150 plus gigawatt hour expansion at Giga 1 is going to be our own cells. Um,
Yeah, and one of my questions is, this is just sort of generally speaking, we've heard Elon talk about wanting to increase cell production to one or more terawatt hour of cell volume. Has he assigned a timeline to that? I'm really curious if he sees that happening in the next 3 years, 5 years, or greater, because the amount of vehicles that they want to produce, even in the next 2 years, is going to be pretty significant. Not only vehicles, but also their energy storage business as well, which has huge potential. And I believe Elon said this on the last call, has a potentially a larger potential than the automotive space.
Definitely.
Do you think that
Sorry,
do you think that they'll get to that in the next 5 years, sooner than that, or later?
I think it's about 5 years. They're gonna go like crazy. It's just so hard to know what's gonna happen. I feel like he wasn't supposed to tell us that terawatt hour thing. It just sort of let slip on the conference call. And you sort of coined the term the Terra Factory if they do switch it to more than like a terawatt of output. So the biggest reason why I think that could seem a lot more feasible than any industry expert or we would have previously believed is because of the Maxwell Technologies DBE property, which is that they don't need a drying oven, which is a significant amount of the footprint of the actual Gigafactory. So if you think about it from a footprint reduction, if we're actually using that new technology of a way simpler, way smaller, streamlined production process, then it's like, okay, well, in that same multi-million square foot Gigafactory property, we can set up way more lines of these new cells. So I think when you think about how long it took them to get to 35 and to get to 150 with this old technology, I think there's this, the way this is set up, the manufacturing level can make it easier to expand this new cell once they get it running. But yeah, I'd be lying if I had a good guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting to sort of extrapolate what we know they're working towards. So I believe that they've said that they are right at about, or should be at about 35 gigawatt hours of battery cell production by the end of this year.
Yeah.
That equates to 360,000 vehicles, more or less. So just doing some loose extrapolation here. Plus, you've got this sort of arm of the energy storage business. What does that 35 gigawatt hours mean in terms of vehicles and energy storage? Any guess?
I know it's only Model 3 and Y, so I would say you're perfect. Like, it seems like you're about right.
Yeah. So then you just have to, I know they want to get to 500,000 vehicles next year, annualized run rate. Or maybe that's at the end of this year that they want to get to an annualized run rate of 500,000. But at some point next year, I think that their goal is to hit that 500,000 vehicles.
I will say the 35 gigawatt hours, I'm pretty sure are good enough to supply 500,000 of Model 3 and Y. I think that's the goal, or that's sort of from my Gigafactory tour. That was basically like what they were comfortable saying is like, we're working with Panasonic to build these 2170 cells. We have capacity for 500,000 of these battery packs a year with Panasonic.
Interesting.
So I don't know if that meant that was like 45 gigawatt hours, assuming they kept expanding into mid 2020 when Model Y goes. I don't know. We can play around with that.
Right.
But
Yeah. I mean, what would it take for them to get to the like 1 terawatt hour of battery cells? What would they need to do? What would they need to? How would they need to position themselves in order to do that? And does Panasonic have a role in sort of getting from that 500,000 vehicles or so to 1 million vehicles?
yeah. Well, another interesting game theory thing here is what did they do for the battery supplier for Gigafactory 3 in Shanghai? It looks like they're going with LG Chem. So to me, if you're reading in between the lines and this Wall Street Journal article where Panasonic saying, oh, we actually want to raise prices now that you're profitable, Tesla, because we helped you. But Tesla's like, wait, we're buying more cells than ever. You guys should be decreasing prices. There was even a bunch of references to how Elon Musk has been trying out his own to push his own battery cells forever. I actually found this, someone emailed me this. I don't know if it's true, but that this like Russian website was showing, or maybe like Ukraine, somewhere they don't have Tesla and they tear apart Teslas. And there was all these like battery cells that looked like they were actually made by Tesla, and they're testing all these new types of cells randomly. So I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes of Tesla trying to get rid of Panasonic. And then they're like, watch, what you're doing is commoditize Panasonic. We don't care if you want us to raise prices because we can call up LG and they can build this chemistry and we'll cut you out of our next factory. And that's exactly what they did. So if you think about it, like the kind of game theory, political aspect of that, I think that was kind of a middle finger to Panasonic.
I think they've got the leverage. Tesla, by far, is the largest producer of electric vehicles. So they should be able to write their own destiny, and they should be able to name their own price for their battery cells when working with anyone, Panasonic, LG, or anyone else. And now, even more, it's interesting because Tesla very likely will become a competitor of Panasonic and LG and some of these other battery cell makers. So that's going to be interesting. They could single-handedly drive down the cost for the automotive market to benefit from.
Yep.
Let's talk about Model Y. Previously, or at the event, the Model Y event in March of 2019, they said that production would likely start in the fall of 2020. On this last earnings call, there was a huge update to that, saying that they are moving up their production timeline to the summer of 2020. We're now seeing a lot of these Model Y vehicles on the road testing. They're testing a lot of them out, and they've been, I've seen it as far as like Michigan supercharging, but a ton in California. So what do you make of this? Because you're starting to see a lot of chatter about the Model Y in terms of visual sightings, and then also this update on moving the production timeline up, with a hint that it might happen sooner, right? I think I caught that on the earnings call. So what do you think about that? And how does this, probably more importantly, impact Tesla's bottom line?
Yeah. I mean, Elon has learned how to manage expectations and manage Wall Street, which is a game changer. We're talking about Tesla growing up. This is the perfect example of them getting it. And they were super late with Model 3. This was my beef. And I feel super personal. Like, this is a personal connection to this because I had one question for Elon at the shareholder meeting in 2018, which was, how do we trust your timelines after this Model 3 thing, where it was just like every quarter for 3 quarters in a row, we're going to hit 5,000 per week. And they just didn't. And it was like, I can't model this company. You're losing more money. Like, they were really messing up. And I think hurt the trust of investors in a lot of ways. But then Elon's comment to that was like, we know he does Elon time and he's super optimistic, but I should probably sandbag. And now we've really seen them like manage expectations, not in a bad way, but just being realistic. And I'm super happy about that. And the whole time, the Model Y shares 75% of the parts. They're building it at Fremont. Like, this was designed for, they're way better at building general assembly lines than they've ever been. The battery packs are already there, being built in Nevada, same ones as the Model 3. I mean, this is kind of in the bag. And so I love the way they've been downplaying it. They also don't want to crush sales of the Model 3 right now by getting people too hyped on the Model Y. But I mean, this is the biggest product lineup expansion in Tesla's history since the Model 3. When they went from, a $5-8 billion company to a $25 billion company. Now we're going to see the Model Y, which is another potentially $20 to $25 billion product category alone, the CUV, crossover utility vehicle. So, I mean, you're talking about, even if it cannibalizes Model 3, which I think it will do, this product alone is going to bring up Tesla to 35-40 billion in annual revenue.
I think that it was a very smart move to share as many parts as they did with the Model 3. I think that that's really one of the fundamental parts of why they're able to move up this production timeline. I'm also curious to know if some of this restructuring of the wiring of the vehicles, reducing the amount of wiring, as well as the 70-to-1 stamping machine is also contributing towards this efficiency and bumping up of the production timeline. What do you think?
Mm, I don't know about the wiring, but I do know that the big stamping thing is being used for Model Y. That thing where there was 70 little pieces and now it's one piece for the Model Y. So I think there's a lot of improvements, and they said that selling price of the Model Y will be a little bit higher than the Model 3. And I think they've been sandbagging just how profitable this is. So I don't know about the wiring harness specifically, although that is going to be in their cars in the future, how soon they put that in. And it's super important if you want to connect the car, make it autonomous, more electronics. I think it's really cool. What gets me even more excited at a high level from the Model Y is the CapEx, capital expenditures, which is a super nerdy financial thing, but they amortize the cost. It's basically the billions of dollars of robots to buy the machinery that they spend up front. They then amortize that cost over time, and it hits the margin of the cars. So there's like a 65% or no, 50% reduction, something huge in the CapEx per unit, because they've learned so much and they're getting so good at building these production lines. So what that means, there's going to be half as much depreciation, amortization on the margin line for that Model Y. And so we're talking about Tesla. They're already profitable. They're going to keep selling more Model 3s. And then we add on this incremental Model Y. I mean, it gets to the point where there's an exciting opportunity for them to make a lot of money when the Model Y really hits maturity.
From what I understand you saying, this car should have a better profit margin, correct? Because of that, because of the lower CapEx?
Yes. And even if it doesn't, and it has the same or even slightly worse, it almost doesn't matter, because this is the beauty of Tesla. The stores are built that, they expand service and superchargers a little bit, but like all the fixed costs are there. That incremental gross margin, whether it's 25% like the Model 3 or even 15%, that 15% is all going to go there, and that operating margin is going to get the hit, and it's just going to all be profits. And so I think that's the really exciting part about Tesla's business model that I've been saying for so long. It's like, wait for the shoe to drop with Model 3. Now they're making a little bit of money. Let's wait for the next shoe to drop, Model Y. Now we're making even more money. We're not even talking about batteries or pickup or semi.
What's your best guess as to when we'll start to see first deliveries of Model Y? You think it's really going to be summer, or do you think it's going to be earlier?
I think it'll be June, if I had to guess.
But I think it's a great time. People are buying cars. I mean, it seems like consistently Tesla has had down quarters in the quarter one of the calendar year. So seems like a slower time. So maybe heading into Q2 and Q3, it's people are just in the mood to buy a little bit more. Speaking of sandbagging, I'm really curious to get your thoughts of the pickup truck. My thought is Elon knows that they've got a grand slam with this truck. And he's been downplaying this. Like, you've been hearing him say the same thing consistently. It's the best product that they've ever made, but I don't know, people might not like it. And if they don't like it, we'll make a more traditional looking truck. My guess is they are confident that they've got a hit on their hands. What do you think?
Yeah, this is savage. I don't even know if he's downplaying it, because he's downplaying it, but also mentioning it a lot and making everyone in the Tesla community. I mean, I put out my Moonshot Monday video on the pickup, and it's got like 80,000 views. Yours, you put out a video, it's got, I mean, if that many people buy the car, this is already a tens of billion product for Tesla. So I think the amount of buzz, this is like, it gets me so excited. Car companies are paying hundreds of millions of dollars to advertise. Tesla's going to hold one event. It's so startup-y, authentic, just like at their design studio. It's not even at a space, but it's amazing. And like we were at the Model Y event, and then they invite every YouTuber. We're all filming it for free. They're live streaming it. That gets 1 million hits. Everybody on Twitter is tweeting about it. Every single tech blog is posting about it the next day. I mean, this is probably $1 billion worth of exposure for free. I'm not joking. That's why when I said this will break the internet, the amount of press this is going to get for Tesla's brand overall, I mean, it's like, I just think that perspective is amazing. And then it's like, dude, this is such an exciting future, an exciting company. Like, we have Elon Musk, like this amazing genius inventor who's got like these crazy designs in his mind and actually bringing them to reality. Like, I think it's so special to witness that. And that's why people are justifiably so excited about this. It's like, nobody's changed the pickup truck market in decades. The look's been the same. The car's been the same. They're just getting bigger and bulkier, burning more and more fossil fuels unnecessarily. Like, it's just ripe for someone new to come out with a better way to think about it from scratch. And the battery technology is there, where the economic use case is going to be extremely powerful as well. And so I think from like a design, tech, cultural zeitgeist, this is a game changer for Tesla. And then from a revenue product perspective, there's more pickup trucks sold in the year than Model Y's competitor or the CUV. So I don't know. I get super excited, but I think it's just a perfect example of why Tesla is Tesla and they're so unique.
Yeah, I'm incredibly excited about it. I hope that both you and I get the invite to it. I've been working some back channels. I've been working some back channels for the last couple of weeks because I have to be there. I have to get the invite, and I want to be there because I do think that it will be a very significant event, even greater than the Model Y, and probably even greater than the Model 3. I just, even if it is the ugliest truck that anyone has ever seen, it's going to get a lot of chatter, especially initially. My guess is, though, if I base Tesla's previous design prowess on the pickup truck, I think it's going to be exceptionally great and look really, really good. I'm just really curious to know if it's going to look anything like the semi truck or not. I'm all the renderings, or a lot of the renderings to date have sort of resembled the semi truck. So I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, and like what kind of, like when Elon said it's going to be a personal armored carrier from the future and that nothing looks cyberpunk enough like it, which has got um yeah, it's hard now. I'm so excited.
um, what did you say in your video? Your best guess was for range. You remember?
I said 350 for standard, 420 for like longer range,
Mm-hmm.
kind of as a joke. But
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I don't know. I think that's more guesstimating. He said it could go 500 or 400, maybe 500 miles. So I guess that would be the longer range one. But then that gets into a whole nother conversation of, is this the new battery cell or not?
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to be producing it probably for a couple of years, right? I think your guess was 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're probably on a 2-year cycle. Um, the Model Y came quicker because it shares so many parts, but maybe, I don't know. I mean, if it shares a lot of the same DNA as the semi truck, they're going to start producing the semi truck in low volume in 2020. Um, maybe this is where they sort of develop their chops for production of the actual pickup truck and bring it to market sooner than 2 years. But it'll be really, really interesting. I sort of think at a large picture, they're probably going to take a lot of that DNA from the semi truck and put it into the pickup truck. I think it makes a lot of sense. They've been testing the semi truck. It's got a lot of high mileage testing. They've been driving it crisscrossing across the US. They're building this truck to be virtually indestructible, not only the windshield with the Tesla armored glass, but also the motors, the million-mile motors. They're guaranteeing the semi truck to last at least 1,000,000 miles. So to me, it makes a lot of sense to take the durability testing of the semi truck and put it into the pickup truck. I also think they're probably thinking a lot about towing as well. I believe that if I was going to take a wild guess, they probably would want to top Rivian specs, right? Rivian's at about 400 miles, I believe. I think that the bottom end of the pickup truck range will be 400. Top end will be 600. That's my guess. That's what we're going to see in terms of battery size. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if Maxwell energy density is implemented into that. Then maybe they don't need as large of a battery pack. But 400 to 600 miles, that's going to be my sort of like wish list.
And so I have a question because you're a Rivian guy, and I know we visited Rivian. I feel like we both have a lot of love for Rivian, but I'm from an analytical standpoint, like, man, this is going to be taking a lot of wind out of their premium vehicle sales, which is the pickup, because the specs of the Tesla are probably going to beat it because that's just how Elon goes. And frankly, the price is going to come in way lower. And so you're going to have better specs for a lower price with all the Tesla service, with the Tesla superchargers, and you really got me thinking about this of when we saw that Amazon order be announced for Rivian, are they going to lean into being an enterprise focused company, or are they going to keep their consumer premium, Land Rover-esque adventure vehicle brand? Because it seems like they're starting to go in two directions before they've even sold one car yet. So, and I don't know how this Tesla pickup ties into that, but I'm kind of curious how you see this affecting Rivian, or if at all.
I don't know if the volume is there on the enterprise side. It seems like the consumer side might be larger. I don't I've never looked at the numbers in comparison to, how many vehicles are sold on an enterprise side to companies that actually need them for corporate purposes, whether that's transit or whether that's corporate vehicles for employees or executives. My guess would be that the market for consumer vehicles is probably greater. That not addressing that probably would be a bad move for Rivian. I think part of me is wondered in the back of my mind as well. RJ, I've had a chance to talk with him on a couple of occasions. He's a really intelligent, savvy CEO. Part of me wonders if if they're already planning for that contingency. They're smart people. To date, they're planning on outsourcing to LG for their battery cell supply. Part of me wonders if they're not working on their own battery cells as well to try and carve out a little bit better of a niche. I think that they've got the talent, just from what I know about the company. They've got the facilities in Irvine, California, where they're testing battery cells. So they have somewhat of a facility where they can probably do their R&D for battery cells. I wonder if they're not working on that, and that's got to be a factor. The cost to develop the cells using LG versus if they generate their own, maybe they can have better tech like what Tesla does. And it wouldn't surprise me one bit if they go into their own cell making process production.
And kind of a moonshot about that is one thing that I've researched. Actually, my interview with the Nano One Materials CEO was really learning about the different use cases for different types of batteries. So Tesla's lithium ion is really good for like this premium long range passenger EV, but maybe you could get a much cheaper battery if you want a little bit less range that charges faster for like a delivery van use case that's only going in urban, like the Amazon order for Rivian. So if I was Rivian, it's like, okay, are we going to copy Tesla's business playbook exactly, or is it worth it to kind of pivot into a new chemistry that Tesla's not working on that's really good at this commercial use case where we can dominate that niche instead of trying to build the same luxury, EVs. But I don't know, it's just kind of a random idea.
One of the things that I think is working against Rivian is the inefficiency of their vehicles. This is something that Matt has talked about in his efficiency chart. Rivian's vehicles are not very efficient, and they've got a large battery pack. So you've got sort of two things working against its range of the vehicle. I wonder if Tesla will have an upper hand there. They're just so good at producing efficient vehicles with a low drag coefficient. So if Rivian develops their own battery technology, they probably would need a lot more money if they really were to go full on with battery cell production. But with the backing of Amazon, they could probably write their own future, their own destiny, if they wanted to get into that stuff. To me, that seems
as
like
long as Bezos approves of their destiny.
Right? Yeah. I mean, that'll be really interesting to see what happens there, right? Is Amazon really serious about electric vehicles, or are they just doing it to sort of check a box on their renewable energies, reducing the carbon footprint thing, like we see a lot of corporate America do, or corporate companies? They put up these lofty goals that look really good, and then it's just for show. I don't think Amazon's like that. It appears like they're making some moves to try and reduce their carbon footprint in many ways. But I don't know. Like the more that I talk and think about Rivian developing their own cells, the more I think it's going to be advantageous for them. And to me, in my opinion, that's the way to go. If you're not producing your own batteries, you're not serious about electric cars.
Maybe. Although I think I'm going to push back and say that Tesla giving away their chemistries to Panasonic and LG is eventually going to make it where they're going to, like Rivian's going to wait. Like when I was grilling them about supercharging, it seems like their answer is like, we don't really need a supercharger network because we'll just wait. And by the time we're out, there'll be 1 million chargers, which maybe kind of works. Once the industry is mature, is it really worth it to spend $10 billion building up a commoditized battery line when you can just buy it from Panasonic? And they've been working on getting the price down for 5 years because they've been doing it for Tesla. So I don't know.
I think you should ask Tesla that. They have developed their own battery technology. They've made the moves to, quote, control their own destiny. And even if they're selling their generation 1 or generation 2 battery cells, they're still the market leader, right? With their new iteration of the cell. So when you look at the range of all of these electric vehicles on the market, Tesla is 3 to 5 years ahead. So
Yeah.
how do you compete with that?
And how do you get a JB Straubel who has been obsessing over this since 2003 and been literally pioneered what this industry is, putting laptop batteries into 4,000 of them together? How do you get another Elon Musk who did his PhD or tried to do it on ultra capacitors 20 years ago and has been thinking about this? Like, you know what I mean? It's not just like they can do it even with money. Like this, there was like breakthrough technology that has been created by Tesla. So that's on like, it's just going to be hard for all these EV companies. Like we're watching what Neo's doing, Dyson just backed out of electric vehicles. Like,
It's not easy. It's not easy, and it takes a lot of money. Model S and X. Elon said that they're keeping Model S and X around for sentimental reasons. Do you buy it, or do you think that Elon is sandbagging for something better in 2020?
very torn. I would say I totally get the sentimental reasons thing. It's very simple. If the mission is to accelerate the world off of fossil fuels, we need to build tens of millions of very cheap cars, not a couple 100,000 luxury mall crawlers. Although those are amazing products that make people happy, that drive down the cost of the technology, that was their goal. Tesla's end goal isn't to be a Ferrari, but electric. It's to really drive down the cost of battery technology and make it accessible to a wide range of industries. So those are really subsidizing R&D for Tesla's future. And now that R&D has been achieved, and frankly, the billions and billions they're going to make from the commercial battery storage, the Model 3, the Model Y, the robo taxis, that's where the value you're going to get as a shareholder is going to come from. That's where the value you're going to get as being changing the world is going to come from. So that's why I see him kind of like from Elon's perspective, like, yeah, like they're dope and we should keep doing it. But I think maybe he is sandbagging it because they're going to come out the plaid powertrain, and I don't know. I think it's a halo effect on the brand. I think get the horizontal touchscreen in there. Let's revamp the interior. Let's sell these for 120 G's. Let's milk this for billions in profit that we can funnel into more R&D. Let's use it for like your theory is always like, let's put the expensive tech in the Model Y, the Model S and X first, like the ultra caps, like the Maxwell battery and the plaid, and then scale it down to more vehicles. So I think so I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I see the no value to the mission at this point, but I also, right? Is that how you're thinking about it?
Yeah. Tesla used to sell S and X for $150,000, $160,000, right? Their performance variants. Those were the most expensive versions that they sell. And now you buy a performance Model S or X, it's $100,000, $110,000. So, they're taking a $40,000, $50,000 haircut where they used to get more money for them. Now they're selling them for less. So, I'm really bullish on the idea of taking your most expensive technology, putting it in the most expensive products, driving down the total cost, getting economies of scale, and then rolling that down. A good example that at least comes to mind initially is Apple does a really good job at this. They're very premium product, and you see the best of the best, the most expensive forward-thinking technology in the most expensive products that then, as they produce it over 1, 2, 3, 5 years, then that technology, you start to see this trickle down into some of their less expensive products, and then they continue to sell their premium technology at the premium price. So I do like this idea, and here's another angle that I've often looked at. Not everyone wants a 3 or a Y. Some people want something bigger. Some people have larger families and more stuff that they need to carry around that's not going to fit in an in a 3 or a Y. So why would you alienate that market? And there is a subset of people who want the most expensive thing because it's the most expensive thing and it's a status symbol, and that's what they want. And so to sort of sunset the S and X for sentimental reasons, just it seems like a scapegoat. I don't understand why any company that was making a product for more and that was producing higher volume of it would say, we're not going to try and figure this out. We're not going to try and understand why we're selling less S and X vehicles.
Because they're on to bigger and better things. I think that's the simplest answer.
Maybe.
And as an investor, And as a person who wants to see them change the world, like that's why I respect Tesla and Elon Musk so much, is
Mhm.
because that is really where his incentives are. And he
Yeah.
really, you know,
Yeah. Well, time will tell, right? It'll be really interesting to see what happens in 2020. Will it be? Will it continue to be for sentimental reasons, or are they sandbagging? I'm really curious to know. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. I'm curious to get your take on any upcoming electric cars that excite you. Is there anything that you've heard of recently that has you really curious? We've got the LA Auto Show that's coming up later this month in November, which I'll be at. There's supposed to be some pretty big reveals from Ford. I know is doing like a Mustang-inspired CUV, I believe. I've seen some other chatter about some vehicles. So, is there anything that excites you at the moment?
the Tesla pickup truck and the Model S and X Plaid, I think, are by far the most exciting things, and Model Y are the four most exciting vehicles in the electric vehicle market by a landslide that I'm actually excited for remotely. Rivian, close second. Every other legacy automaker is not a competitor, frankly. Their software chops are awful. Like, I think when we're talking about the machine that builds the machine, why is Tesla advancing so quickly, improving their gross margin, building Model 3s profitably? Because their entire factory runs with software. Like, the layers of this being a tech company and you needing to be a tech company to succeed in the future of transport and mobility have never been clearer. And the expertise in software for every big automaker is embarrassingly, pathetically behind. And that's not like an exaggeration. So Ford is cute, but are they going to recruit the hundreds, the thousands of top tier software engineers to actually pull autonomy off, to pull off even an OS in the car that works, to pull off a battery management system that's remotely like on par with Tesla's? The Tesla Model 3, just that survey from Bloomberg just came out. The degradation on the battery is like 1% over 40,000 miles, or 2%. It's insane. Best in class. That's all battery management software. I mean, so I think we've seen the I-Pace come to market. We've seen the e-tron come to market. The sales are like 1/10 of what the Model S and X are, even though they're a little cheaper. Like, there's just, so even when the Bolt has been on the market for years, they're constantly improving it. The Leaf, none of these cars can gain any traction. So when I hear about, oh, something's going to get unveiled at the LA Auto Show that they're going to say is coming out in 2022, that doesn't come out in 2022, that they're not even going to make money on anyway, so they're not incentivized to sell, that their dealers don't want to sell because they don't get maintenance, like, I don't know. I wish I was excited about it, but frankly, the most thing I'm excited about is, as someone who wants EVs to succeed, is Tesla's financial position has never been stronger. Why should that matter to the average person or consumer? Is because Tesla's likelihood of success, of them sticking around, of them achieving their mission to sell millions of cars, is significantly higher than it's ever been. Like, if you thought that was a 5 or 10% chance before, which I did maybe a year or two ago, now it's like 50% chance, because they're making money. It's in the bank. Like, this revolution's happening. I think we're not going to see serious competition from these companies for years unless they start buying skateboards from Tesla. So maybe Ford will announce that and I'll be like, okay, they got a chance. But so that's kind of the way I look at it. And I don't know, maybe I'm too much of a downer, but I'd love to be proven wrong and get stoked on another EV.
I think you have a right to be skeptical about EVs from other automakers based on history, based on the past. So I totally get it. I am waiting. I'm actually quite excited about the ID3, the VW ID3. It seems like for a lot of the market outside of the US, it's going to sell very well. It seems like it's got decent range. Some of these smaller vehicles, the Polestar 2, I'm also very curious to hear. I want to hear about this Mustang-inspired Ford CUV. I'm curious, although in terms of the specs, this is going to be, I think, Ford's first electric vehicle that they introduce with some remote amount of detail. So that'll be really interesting to see. I'm not overly optimistic about it being competitive, but I would love to be surprised. I would love to be pleasantly surprised. Let's go ahead and wrap up with a little bit of rapid fire questions. In fact, I'm going to ask you some stuff that I probably don't even know. So this will be a little bit more on the personal level to give people a chance to get to know you and who you are off camera. What's your go-to breakfast? Do you eat breakfast, and what is your go-to breakfast?
Go-to breakfast is Chobani, banana, and cold brew.
Nice, love it. So you drink coffee over tea?
Oh yeah, cold brew. I'm obsessed with good coffee. I'm Italian, so
Yeah.
I feel like Italians need coffee in the morning.
It's like genetic.
Yeah, like
You have to
great
drink good
coffee.
coffee.
I love coffee. If you
um,
couldn't tell from my videos.
um, what what do you do on the weekends? Like, are you a stay at home chill type of person, or do you like to go out and go to good restaurants, or is cocktails and beer your thing?
Definitely a foodie. I love exploring new food. Plus, in New York City, there's all types of food, and especially like the whole Impossible Burger. Like, I feel like I'm going through this journey of like, I love hamburgers, I love steaks. How do I reduce the carbon output and environmental impact of my diet? Which is actually kind of something I want to make content about as well. But that's on a personal level what I've been going through. I don't know. I also am a huge art. Like, I love art, so I love like I've been getting super into Ableton, which is music production software, and like making beats. So maybe you'll see those in my videos soon, or painting. So very non, um, EV finance things, I would say.
Love it. What about podcast? Do you have some good go-to podcasts that you're like, anytime you got some free time, you're listening to it?
Tesla Daily, I love for Tesla content. Obviously, I'm sure you know Rob Maurer. Honestly, there's been a couple really good podcasts. A Conversation With, which is super mainstream YouTube, Phil DeFranco. He's a huge YouTuber, and he has all these other big YouTube people come on and really talk about their careers and the business side of being a creator and YouTuber. So you would probably like those, and they're very different. They're like people with 20 million followers that make like dumb videos about getting hit in the head or whatever. Like, not my content, but I learn a lot from that. And I'm really trying to study, what this opportunity is in media that I think we're at the forefront of. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on with what we're doing on YouTube and just the way this is evolving with, Snapchat, TikTok. I'm distributing the audio version of my stuff on Anchor. I just think there's at the cusp of so much disruption. We're just scratching the surface of this creator movement that I'm spending a lot of time trying to strategize like how to make the most out of that opportunity sort of. And I think the Conversation With podcast, there's one with Casey Neistat that I think is awesome.
Love it. I think it's really insightful. Two more questions here. What advice would you give to someone who is looking to start their own platform, whether it's on YouTube or audio podcast or other? What advice would you give to them if they're just starting out?
Be you and always be you and be authentic, and never copy content. Never try and make content that you think will win, or design your entire philosophy based on what you think will do well. Do what you want to do creatively and be true to yourself, and just keep doing that and let the world come to you instead of you trying to go out to the world.
I love that. In addition to that, what would you say, where do they start in terms of, do they go out and spend, $2,000 on nice, tech products, or do they start just with whatever they have, phone, or, whatever they've got with them?
I mean, I shoot a lot of my videos on the go on my iPhone, and it's amazing. So I think there's no excuse. You can literally in 1 hour decide you want to make a TV show, film it, edit it, and put it on YouTube and have it distributed to over 1 billion people potentially. I mean, if you're a creative person and that doesn't get you excited, then maybe it's not for you. But I think like whatever every person has unique perspective on the world. And if you can figure out a way to share that with your own perspective, like the opportunities are limitless.
Yeah, I agree. And I would add, in addition to everything that you've shared, which is fantastic, I think a really good sort of like practical strategy is to try and do collaborations, a lot like what we're doing. Reach out to people, cold DM them, and any topic that you think is going to fit well for your targeted audience. Reach out to people who are talking about similar things, and just invite them to join you to have a discussion. And then you can take that content, and it's almost like validation that your viewers are seeing you with this other person who might be a little bit more well known in the industry, or a little bit more established. I'm a big fan of that, because it also grows your network too, right? You get a chance to build these relationships and friendships with these people in a similar industry, and that too helps you grow your reach.
Yeah, I mean, the accelerated networking of like the Tesla tubers, like me being able to get on the phone and call you after my Gigafactory visit, or call up Maddie Mogul or Rob Maurer, or like that, to me has been the most priceless part of all of this, is like those connections. And you've done a really good job at, you're getting to the point where big enough now where like Jeff Don will take you seriously, Cindy Monroe will take you seriously, Rivian will take you seriously, and you're bringing really, really good exclusive partnership content with that. So I hope that's my favorite part about your channel, is that I feel like you really bring exclusive content in the EV space that like I want to see. And I think that's so like 90% of the channels out on here are just like regurgitating what comes out. It's not 0 to 1, but yours actually goes 0 to 1 a lot of the time. So, and I think that's a lesson that people should have, like go 0 to 1 with all your content.
Yeah, love it. Okay, last question. Besides Elon Musk, if you had an hour to sit down and have lunch with someone, who would be your first pick? Who'd be your number one draft pick that you could sit down and eat lunch with and just pick his or her brain?
Kanye West. I think he's a genius on so many levels, and he's way more like Elon Musk than you think. He's vertically integrated. He started off as a music producer and could make beats and then started rapping. That's super rare to actually produce and do vocals on your beats. And that's why he's been able to create so many new genres of music. And I think people like, they think he's crazy and they think all his songs are super weird. Like all of his albums are a new genre almost that he's created from scratch. And he's only been able to do that because he actually can produce music. So I think he's like absurdly talented. He's built a multi-billion-dollar fashion brand that's about to take manufacturing into the US with vertically integrated hydroponics, which I think they should partner with Tesla with to have solar panels and batteries and go off grid. That's desperately needed hyper change in the fashion industry that he's driving. So I think people give him a lot of crap for being crazy and being Kanye, but it's like, if you actually, I'm a big fan of not being a fan of Elon Musk or Kanye because of who they are or whatever. It's what have they actually physically done? I'm not a fan of them. I'm a fan of literally their execution, their accomplishments. And so I think Kanye West is like, I would love to get, and that's one of the reasons I do this channel. I think it's so crazy to like think about this, but I'm like, I do think I'll be able to interview these type of people one day. And like, that's why I'm grinding so hard. That's why I'm putting out content. That's why I want to hit 1 million subs, because then these opportunities actually become like reality. So
Kanye West.
Fingers crossed.
I love it. I love it. I was not expecting Kanye West. You really threw a curveball, but I like the thinking and the thought process behind it. Totally caught off guard. I got to admit. Okay, so man, it's good to catch up, especially on camera. Really appreciate your time, Gally. For the 1% that don't know who you are, how can they follow what you're doing?
Google Hyperchange or check out Hyperchange TV. Maybe Sean will put a link, and check out my channel, tweet me on Twitter and say what's up. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Sean. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Good to catch up, and we'll talk soon. See ya.